Sup Shredders, my name is Logan aka Spiderhands and welcome to an SP Patrons video today that I'm making for Corn Sunday as part of their custom monthly music review. And if we switch over to here, we have ourselves a track on Spotify. This is from an act named, as I understand it translated, Sound Toys, titled Your City. I'm going to listen through this track from start till finish and we're going to hear what we think. We also have lyrics kindly provided at the end by Corn Sunday, so without further ado, let's go. And there are lyrics on Spotify as well. It's just so gorgeous with the guitars off the bat. 在这命途多舛的世界里，辗转的岂止我和你，沿着那条无尽的路途。I mean, just the sound design. I know it's taking away from the effect, so I'll go back a little bit, but just the sound design with the keys coming in there, sort of whoosh riser, it's dope, man. Awesome. 你说眼泪也许只能是爱最为无力的表达，可是我们的脆弱怎么有别的方式？多少次我独自漫步在曾经熟悉的街道，和相濡以沫的人坦言永世的分离，但从未想过某一天你会 fantastic。 就这样出现在视线的前方，此时的你就这样浮现在昨日那远去的时光。 But that's the power of having a chord progression that isn't just like a loop of 4 chords there. You can extend the passage even if it's an instrumental and make it more compelling because it is less predictable. Baby, 此刻我的眼角是否有些酸？你说这是想哭还是笑？ Great to have the ladies vocal layering on top. 城市终究会将这一切慢慢的遗忘。 将你我的故事灰飞烟灭一刹那，但从未想过某一天会这样出现。Great dynamic range. 就这样出现在视线的前方，此时的你就这样浮现在昨日那远去的时光。Ah, a major lift. Cool. To contrast the smooth nature and tones of those vocal parts with this sort of almost kind of eerie sounding guitar bit. Oh. The panning of the vocals there, very nice. 不能破碎我的心。直到某一天，无论什么来临，再不会轻言放弃。不让你我之间注定是美国新人。
Some minor leanings there are nice. Did you hear how the synth lead we had the up an octave there? See how the keys have changed to that tone there? I think that's sensational. It's a great adjustment to suit the other parts of the arrangement. I think we still have the keys down there, but how it's moving around the stereo field now with the guitars is kind of neat as well. It just keeps on rising. Tremendous. Excellent work. No, this is a great track. Sound Toys, apologies if it's under. I mean, Sound Toys is the translation for what I've got here on Spotify. I think if this is any indication of what the rest of the album is like, it's going to be a fantastic album. And we're going to have a look through the lyrics, and we're going to talk about this track more in the conclusion. So we've got the lyrics for, Sound Toys, Your City. Hopefully you guys can see that on the screen. There you go. That way I can see it. That's great. I've got a camera there. I know that's probably not very helpful, but there's a camera kind of obfuscating a part of the screen there. Behind the scenes stuff. It's not just you and me who are stumbling. So we're talking about how the world's kind of screwed and we're struggling with it. You say tears may be the weakest expression, but how else can be vulnerable? For so many times I stroll in solitude traversing these once familiar streets. So I've been reminded of this person we used to have. I assume it is a person, or potentially it's a concept or something we were nostalgic for. City will eventually figure it all. The story of you and me we snuffed in an instant. Oh, okay. I'm strong enough to face reality head on and razor sharp, but can't break my own heart anymore. No matter how it falls upon us, I will never let you go easily, defying a destiny that is American-like until that day. I'm not sure what American-like means. I don't have an issue with it. I'm just not sure what they mean by that. But we're going to talk about this track more in the conclusion. I think I kind of know what it's about. But welcome to the conclusion of my review of this track from an act named Sound Toys. Again, a translation of what I've got here on Spotify, titled Your City. What do I think that this track is about? I think it's about someone talking about how they've experienced some hardships with this person, having that relationship with them in the past, and this person has appeared before them in the same city, and they're sort of struggling to come to terms with that. They don't want to let this person go again. They feel like they've potentially been offered another opportunity and they're going to make the most of it. I think that's the kind of... They talk about how, the world is kind of struggling. The city will forget them in an instant. So they're just really desperate to make sure that they can keep it all together, that they have those connections there, because maybe that's just all that they have. And I think that there is something there that a lot of people can appreciate. Cities, as you know, as may not know, huge. They can swallow you whole, right? And sometimes even when you're surrounded by millions of people, you can feel very alone. So I think that a lot of people in the audience listening to this will probably be able to appreciate what they're discussing here. They might feel a sense of a sense of connection because they feel that way about other people, or maybe they have other people and they don't want to take them for granted, or they're reminded that they shouldn't. And yeah, I think the vocal style within this initially had the male vocals quite low-key at the start. They're kind of maybe walking through some of the sadness they feel about how things used to be in the past, trying to sort of be approachable and not sort of over the top with their sense of strength with their expression there. But we had the lady vocalist come in the midpoint or the second verse there, and things start to elevate. You kind of get the impression that it's both sides sort of feeling similarly, and I think that's why it kind of turns a bit sort of majorish in that point, is that they kind of realize there is a sense of, yeah, we both feel this way, so things are better now. We're not going to take this for granted again. We're not going to let the city sort of swallow us whole and forget us. I think that the crowd chants that we had like later on, like the group of vocalists singing is almost as if like it's everyone sort of wanting that connection. I think that was really sort of like romantic and very kind of magical and special. And ultimately, it's a song where I think that there's enough variety within the vocals, as well as some really compelling vocal melodies and harmonies, especially in the chorus and verse sections, that no matter how many singers you have there, it's always interesting and rather comforting to listen to, even in those sadder parts. The track develops over time. It's not just, it's 6 minutes long, so it's way outside of the 2 to 4 minute sweet spot. And usually I get a little bit nervous when that is the case, because I think, okay, how are we going to continue to elaborate on what our existing sort of like story, how we're going to further develop it to make it interesting throughout. But I don't think we had an issue with that. The beginning of it is simply like kind of a lead guitar in the distance, a very eerie lead guitar with some synthesizers going on there, maybe some like synth strings or something like that. And as we go along this track, we start adding more instruments, like main keys. We have vocals, we have guitar, bass, and drums come in. And just the song becomes more intense as the vocals also start to increase in layering and potency. And I think that that's a really smart move. If you have the problem with having everything at the start is that if you're having a 6 minute long track, you either have to have enough variety to make that kind of giving everything at the beginning worthwhile, or you keep the song short. But because we're going in a upward sort of incline there the entire the way through for the most part, as I remember it, I think it's just really positive and satisfying. You can kind of, again, imagine not just from the lyrics and the vocals, but also from the instrumental performance, you can imagine someone sort of working through their stuff initially, and then that person floats in front of them and they start talking about their journey too, which is why I start to lady and man start to harmonize. And then you have everyone else coming in, and then it sort of like builds like that. So there's a great sense of progression with it, which is very satisfying. They don't just have the same chord progression the whole way through. They have 2 to 3 sections at the very least there, with variations and alternate sort of lead instruments. Even if it's more like kind of like the sort of kind of crispy guitar we had in the later half, we allowed ourselves to have an instrumental intro again with those lead guitars and provide an interesting sort of sense of ambience and an environment for the rest of the elements to sort of sit in and kind of. It was definitely an experience. It felt like we weren't trying to have everything rushed at you. It was kind of giving us an opportunity to sort of like take our time with it. And considering that most of these tracks on this album appear to be like 4 to 7 minutes, I think that that's just the way that they do things. And I think if they can make every track as compelling as this, it's an effective album. I talk about a few of my favorite instruments from this track. I think, again, as I mentioned, the guitars are wonderful. We start with, again, the kind of ambient leads there with a bit of reverb on it, like they're very kind of ghostly, as if they're barely there. And as we continue, we have some more sort of focused chordal sections there. Some of the parts are a bit sort of like, I don't want to say raunchier, but like a bit more involved and a bit more assertive, a bit of crispiness to some of the guitar tones there. Eventually we have like distortion with kind of a fuzzier kind of sound to it. Tones and textures are important. It's not like we had incredibly complicated instrumental performances here. It's more about the layering of the various instruments and how we kind of put them forward. And I think for the most part, the guitar was simultaneously pocketing whilst also providing a sense of identity and a bit of relief to the vocal foil. I liked that the guitar wasn't trying to take the spotlight the entire time. I'm a guitarist, so I understand the importance of a guitar as an important instrument, but it's just that it's great to allow room for things like the keys, for example. Like the keys weren't an all the time thing. The busiest part for me was when we had like the synthy kind of solo leadish part near the end there, where we were arpeggiating, slowly going up in pitch as we went along, and it was really interesting to go along with that on that journey. It's one of the ways that we can continue to maintain a progression there, even if it's a similar theme, is by adding another lead on top of it and like getting it to go somewhere different. You're following that new direction, that journey there across recycled elements there in a way that is positive. We harmonized with the rest of the instruments well within the progressions that were instantiated across the different bits, but we didn't overplay. Often we were accenting the chord notes of the bars, and if we did do some arpeggiating, it was it's kind of minimalist until that later stage there. That was more of an accent format. The bass guitar that we had there, I think, was purely sort of like support. It wasn't trying to overshadow anything else. It was very kind of like loyal to the root notes of the chord progressions and stuck with the drums for a lot of it. The drums, they were fantastic. We did have a bit of activity near the end with the drums. Like we had some interesting sort of like hi-hat patterns. There were some 16th note grooves on there, and then we were very sort of like, again, assertive with the snare fills and such. But I don't think we tried to explore the kit too much until that later stage. We gradually increased the intensity and activity in those cymbal and kick and snare passages. Actually, I just had another listen through. The 16th did actually come in quite early for the for the drum kit, so never mind. It's just they were far more subtle than some of the elements of the mix. Did I think they were going for like a pianissimo 4-nat with those? So it was absolutely fine. I think I was more confusing it with the part about like the 130, 140 section where we were sort of going for a 1 and dun 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 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and would those be 30-second hi-hats actually? Because I think the tempo is 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a yeah, no, those would be 30 seconds. So we were had a lot of finesse with the sticks, but well done with the drum performance. That was incredibly tight, actually. That's difficult to do at that range and to keep the constant like that. We clearly had a great sort of command of the kit there. We understood our dynamic range. We understood how to pocket. And I think the absence of drums for the first minute and a half made them all the more valuable in that later stage when we were continuing to develop. So yeah, I don't think we did too much sort of extra. We increased at a certain pace around the midpoint, but the end of the first third. But like once we had the drums there, they provide a sense of groove and pace to it, and I think that's what they were required to do. We didn't try to overshadow anything else. And there were also occasional Foley-ish kind of elements. There was like sub-bass resonances or bass resonances, like risers and stuff like that kind of split up, I think, the first verse stanzas, and I think that was great. We didn't try to introduce things too early. We allowed ourselves to sit with the vocalist as they're telling their story. Again, it helps pad out a 6-minute piece. If you give everyone the things too early, it's difficult to go up from there. The theme overall was very gentle and caring and loving. You had warmth with the tones of the various instruments combined together. Things were wonderfully niched in the frequency spectrum, so there were no weird resonant frequencies, both from a post-production and also from an arrangement perspective. We were clearly aware of the fact that we needed to kind of have core elements kind of conservative, but at the same time a little bit of edge, again with some of the crispy guitar tones that we had, like when they were by themselves in lieu of the vocals, were very good. And I think that ultimately the mixture of major and minor chords, without trying to sort of place too much complexity with the extensions there, the gentle nature of any faster rhythms on the drums and stuff like that, allowing for like a sense of accent there and a focus on the quarters. And just, yeah, I think it's just incredibly effective overall. I think it was a really tight instrumental performance without note out of place. And I understand how the vocals and lyrics came together with the rest of the instruments within the track. I think it was really well structured, and there was, yeah, I'm really happy with it. The studio recording, mixing, and mastering, I think that was really eloquently handled as well. The vocals, whether it was the mains or the dual harmonies or like the crowded sort of vocals like we had later on, they were wonderfully phrased and textured around the stereo field with a bit of like panning and automation, or like the synth going into like some of the guitar layers. The vocals went from left to right as well, which was really sort of like, it was really stunning. And I enjoyed the way the guitars, bass, drums, and keys and the synths were handled as well as in the frequency spectrum and the stereo field. Like there was dynamic range to it as well. Things were not the same loudness all the time, but it was still nice and loud without pumping, so the bus compression and limiting was handled. And just, I usually try to remember to do this before I talk about everything else, but I think the vocals were just well handled. We could clearly sing. We clearly knew the kind of sound we wanted. If there were any effects, they were very sort of subtle. A lot of the sort of ambient delays and reverbs and stuff like that were chucked onto the guitar parts, as well as some of the synth and key bits there. There was a sense of overall mistiness to it, but not to a point where it became too sort of fluffy. And yeah, it's tight. It's my review of this track from an act named Sound Toys, titled Your City, and hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, please do go check them out on their various social medias and Spotify page, and stay cool and stay safe, and please remember to support your local musicians and artists at this point in time, as you help more than ever with all the crazy stuff going on. I'll catch you in the next SP Patrons video. Spiderhands out.